MAGA Mike panics in public at his Bluff gets called, and the unfolding drama has sent waves through the political landscape in Washington, where every move is being dissected by lawmakers, analysts and citizens who are watching closely to see how the once confident figure now struggles to maintain composure in the face of mounting pressure. His reaction during a high-profile appearance was described by observers as nothing short of the public unraveling, and that has fueled speculation about his credibility, his influence and the future of his political trajectory. The moment began when questions from both reporters and opponents exposed inconsistencies in his earlier claims. He had long projected strength in his speeches, promising decisive leadership and unwavering control, yet the instant his bluff was called, the facet appeared to crack. The once defiant tone shifted to hesitation, his voice faltered, and his body language betrayed the nervous energy that rippled through the crowded venue. Those in attendance noted how visibly shaken he became, grasping for words and failing to deliver the kind of commanding response his supporters had come to expect. For weeks leading up to this confrontation, MAGA Mike had doubled down on rhetoric designed to project dominance. He invoked themes of loyalty, strength and unyielding resolve to rally his base. At rallies he declared that opponents were weak and that the movement he championed would never bend to pressure. But in that critical moment, when asked to produce proof to back up his bold claims, he offered none. The crowd, censorship, reporters, press further and allies sitting nearby appeared uneasy at the sight of their figurehead struggling under the spotlight. The scene did not end with one uncomfortable exchange. Instead it spiraled as more questions highlighted contradictions in his previous statements. What began as a confident appearance quickly dissolved into a spectacle that has now been replayed across television networks and social media platforms. Clips of his nervous stumbles were broadcast repeatedly, and the narrative of panic overtaking poise began to take root. Political opponents seized on the opportunity, framing it as evidence that the movement he represents is built on bluster rather than substance. Reactions were swift and came from across the spectrum. Members of his own party offered muted responses, some choosing to remain silent while others attempted to downplay the incident as a mere bad moment. But critics within the same ranks whispered that this might mark the beginning of a larger unraveling. One insider noted that cracks have been forming for months, pointing to growing disagreements about strategy and messaging. The public panic only amplified internal doubts, giving his rivals leverage to question his leadership. Outside the political class, ordinary citizens waited. Many supporters expressed disappointment, noting that they had expected strength in the face of confrontation. Instead they witnessed a faltering performance. Some longtime loyalists defended him, insisting that anyone can have a difficult day under pressure, but the sheer scale of coverage and the repeated broadcasts of his shaky demeanor made it difficult to ignore. For those undecided or skeptical of his agenda, the display reinforced suspicions that his promises are hollow. The timing could not have been worse as his movement faces crucial challenges with legislative battles looming and fundraising drives underway. The image of panic may erode donor confidence and shake the faith of grassroots activists who thrive on the perception of unwavering leadership. Opponents on Capitol Hill are likely to use the incident to press harder, confident that the pressure can force further concessions or even deepen divides within his ranks. The bluff, once a hallmark of his strategy, now risks becoming a symbol of weakness. Analysts on major networks dissected every detail, from the sweat on his brow to the pauses in his speech. One commentator remarked that politics is often about perception, and once the image of unshakable confidence is broken, it becomes nearly impossible to rebuild. Others argued that while we may attempt to reframe the incident as a media exaggeration, the raw footage speaks louder than spin. In the modern era where clips circulate instantly across platforms, every stumble is magnified and remembered. Behind the scenes, advisors reportedly scrambled to contain the fallout. Discussions were held about reshaping upcoming appearances, scaling back aggressive claims and focusing instead on achievable goals. But whether such a pivot will resonate remains unclear, as the base that once cheered uncompromising rhetoric may not be easily satisfied with toned-down messaging. Insiders familiar with his team's dynamics revealed tension and frustration, some aides urging a return to discipline, while others argued that doubling down on defiance was the only way forward. The broader implications stretch beyond one man's performance to the movement itself. Critics argue that the incident reveals a fundamental weakness, the reliance on strongman posturing rather than substantive policy proposals. When the bluff was finally tested, it collapsed, and the absence of concrete solutions became evident. In contrast, opponents presented themselves as grounded in detailed plans and pragmatic approaches, hoping to seize the momentum generated by the spectacle of panic that unfolded before the nation's eyes. Crowds outside the venue voiced mixed emotions. A handful remained defiant, chanting in support and dismissing that coverage is biased, while others quietly walked away disillusioned and uncertain about their political future. Interviews with attenders captured the divide, some saying they would stand by him no matter what, others admitting that the performance had shaken their confidence in his ability to lead through crises. The fracture among supporters mirrors the broader fault lines now visible within the movement. Meanwhile, the media narrative continues to evolve. Headlines paint the moment as a turning point, with phrases like panic unraveling and bluff collapse dominating coverage. Editorial boards question whether the public could could continue to place trust in leadership that falters under scrutiny, and the comparison to past political figures who crumbled under pressure has been repeatedly drawn. Historical parallels highlight how quickly a single moment can define a career and reshape public perception. In fundraising circles, concern is mounting donors thrive on momentum and confidence, and the spectacle of hesitation may cause some to redirect their resources elsewhere. In politics, money follows strength, and the appearance of weakness is costly. Operatives working on future campaigns are already strategizing around the fallout, gauging whether this incident can be leveraged to peel away supporters and redirect energy toward alternative figures who can claim the mantle of strength without the baggage of panic. Opponents inside Congress did not miss the opportunity. They framed the panic as validation of their criticism that the movement lacked seriousness. Leaders from the opposing side took to podiums declaring that the public had witnessed the truth with their own eyes and that no spin could cover it up. Speeches in state houses echoed the same sentiment, reinforcing the narrative of unraveling as a unifying message against his camp. Even international observers commented, noting how unusual it is for a figure so defined by bravado to display such visible unease. Efforts to recover began immediately following the incident, with new appearances scheduled, carefully scripted talking points distributed and surrogates deployed across media platforms. But the question remains whether damage control can erase the memory of panic. The footage is indelible, etched into the public consciousness, and opponents are likely to replay it endlessly to remind voters of the moment when confidence cracked. Political veterans cautioned that recovery is possible, but only through a combination of discipline, humility, and tangible results, all of which remain in question for the embattled figure. The drama has also ignited debates about authenticity. Some argue that the moment revealed a human side and that voters might appreciate vulnerability if framed correctly. Others contend that the brand of politics he embodies leaves no room for doubt or weakness, and that once a mask slips, the myth cannot be restored. Strategists privately admit that how he navigates the next weeks will determine whether he can rebuild trust or whether the panic becomes the defining chapter of his career. Social media platforms remain ablaze with commentary. Hashtags mocking his stumble trended for hours. Memes spread rapidly, and even some allies struggled to counter the avalanche of ridicule. Digital culture thrives on moments like these, and the virality ensures that the panic will linger long after the news cycle has moved on. In online spaces, perception often solidifies faster than in traditional media, and it poses a unique challenge for his team, which must combat not only political opponents but also the tide of internet satire. As the dust settles, one undeniable fact remains: the image of unwavering control that MAGA Mike cultivated over years has been shattered, at least temporarily. The moment his bluff was called exposed vulnerabilities that can no longer be ignored. Whether he can rebuild that image will depend on his ability to shift strategy, demonstrate real results, and weather the storm of criticism. But the spectacle of panic will serve as a reference point for opponents, a rallying cry for critics, and that lingering doubt in the minds of supporters. In Washington, the talk is less about if the movement will be impacted and more about how deeply insiders wonder whether rival figures within his orbit will use the incident to stake their own claims to leadership. The competition that has long simmered in the background may now accelerate, sensing opportunity. The political world is rarely forgiving, and once a narrative of weakness takes hold, challenges are emboldened. This could reshape alliances, recalibrate loyalties, and set the stage for battles not just between parties but within his own base. For now, the focus shifts to upcoming appearances, each one carrying the weight of redemption or further unraveling. Every statement will be scrutinized, every hesitation replayed, every attempt to reclaim control judged against the memory of public panic. In politics, moments define careers, and this was a moment that may be impossible to erase. Whether history records it as the beginning of decline or the spark of reinvention depends on the choices made in the coming weeks. What is certain is that the image of MAGA Mike panicking in public at his bluff got called has become